What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing good, and in this video I'll be looking at the newest Prydwen tier list for 2.1 and we'll be reading the massive changelog that they did for 2.1. As you can see here, we have the newest character Phoebe placed in T0. We'll talk about that, and as we zoom in here, you can see a lot of these old characters have an eye icon placed on them. This means they're being placed on the watch list, and Prydwen might be lowering their placement on the tier list soon. So without further ado, let's get into it. Phoebe is placed in T0. We'll put it as bluntly as we can. Phoebe is the best F2P DPS in the game. With a weapon and teammates that don't even require you to do a single pull, she performs less than a half tier below Jinxi with her premium weapon and supports. And then she can get improved with better weapons and quick swaps. Yeah, she is very good for sure, but I don't know if she's the best F2P DPS because, well, Camellya with the standard 5-star sword plus Sanhua, who is free, can also deal a lot of damage. Also, the damage we see right now from Phoebe is very inflated because the tower buff gives up to 50% damage bonus to her Spectral Frazzle team that no other teams can take advantage of. So I think her damage is going to dip noticeably when the current Tower of Adversity resets, and I don't really agree with Phoebe being T0. I personally will place her in T0.5. That being said though, let's look more closely to Phoebe's character review. We have some pros and cons here. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I think Phoebe definitely has a lot going for her. Like, she has a lot of advantages, a lot of pros. She's very straightforward, consistent to use. Her rotations are very flexible because she doesn't require a fixed outro skill from a dedicated support, and she does do AoE damage. She has like almost infinite range. But I think she also has a lot of cons that are more than what's listed here. So although she's FTP friendly with her best in slot teammate being Spectral Rover, but that reliance also means some new FTP players will lose access to S6 Havoc Rover, who is a very strong DPS character that new players can take advantage of, whereas a character like Camellya would only take away the free Sanhua that everyone gets, and a character like Jiyan can take Mortafee, who is always on Jiyan's banners and therefore very accessible, and leave Havoc Rover available for a nether floor or another tower. Currently the support mode is not utilized, and her signature set requires attacking enemies with 10 stacks of Spectral Frazzle to activate the 4-piece bonus, but this can be hard to achieve against multi-waves of smaller AoE mobs. So for example, the triple wave TOA we have this period, and Spectral Rover's Spectral Frazzle application has a limited AoE, so sometimes you will see 2 enemies there and Rover tries to apply more Frazzle, and also the debuff where, you know, your Spectral Frazzle stacks do not decay over time for a period of time, and sometimes one enemy gets that debuff and another enemy didn't get it, and that enemy who gets the debuff will like die faster, and you have to like spend more time clearing out the other one that didn't get a debuff. So there are some problems with Spectral Frazzle when combating multi-wave content. Pull value for F2Ps is questionable because, well, channel poll shows that 53% of viewers skipping Phoebe, and this kind of makes sense because, you know, if you already have Jinxi and your FTP, it's questionable to pull for Phoebe unless you really like her, because right now how the TOA is restricting players is by restricting elements. You know, they give certain elements reduced resistance and give certain elements increased resistance, and also place boss with certain elemental resistance. So if you want to like cover up like all the circumstances and not struggle, it's best to have as many teams in different elemental elements or attributes as possible. And finally, she has questionable ceiling as the main DPS. While Spectral Rover is there for her, it's very unlikely she will be getting an upgrade in sub DPS who can both apply Spectral Frazzle and buff, because her own sub DPS form is taking up that role. She cannot be buffing herself, and that is the problem, because I don't think Encore is going to release basically another support Phoebe, but it's not Phoebe, because I think the support role Phoebe is the character that's doing that for another Spectral Frazzle DPS. Therefore, her ceiling is pretty much fixed as what it is now, and her DPS form might get power creeped easily in the future. While her rival Jinxi can still get better when they release someone who can buff skill damage more than Jojo, while providing possibly stronger coordinated attacks on Judge, and Jinxi's team's damage ceiling can be risen. So that's enough about Phoebe, let's move on. So both the Rovers got a buff on the tier list. Spectral Rover has been buffed from T3 to T1.5. I personally think they deserve like a low T1, but T1.5 is acceptable as well. I have played a ton of Spectral Rover. Mine is pretty built. The main knocks on this character are the low multipliers, a basically useless outro that provides no buff, and the very small range in AoE on their skill, which can often miss. So with those flaws in mind, I think T1.5 is very acceptable. Moving on to Havoc Rover, as the long-coveted S6 is finally made available, the Havoc Rover is now at their prime. I do think that Rover can be placed in T0.5 now because the 25% curry boost from S6 is huge, and they can make it so they can always crit. It does mention though, they've been put on the watch list to test how they compare with Camellya. In the instance, she is placed in T0.5 as well. So what's going on with Camellya? Let's see. Camellya, she determines a ton of stuff. We consider placing her alone in T0.5 above anyone but Jinxi, Carlotta, and Phoebe. The reasoning? Inconsistency. Camellya needs to hit her attacks for her rotations to be smooth. Against a moving target, almost any enemy in the game, this isn't happening. And the second this doesn't happen, her rotations become longer and awkward. We factor in difficulty when considering our tier list placements, but Camellya fundamentally isn't difficult to play. The issue is simply that she doesn't reliably hit all her attacks against all enemies. So missing with Camellya is a huge issue which isn't exclusive to casuals. I don't know, I have a mixed feeling about this. I don't think I have the best knowledge to comment on this because mine has been S6R5 for a long time. But I think the problem is a lot of people, they just always use a red form. You should not always use a red form. You should use the white form when there's just one enemy because it just has more mobility. I really think it's a skill issue, but I don't think it's that bad. I don't think missing with Camellya is that bad. But again, mine is S6R5. I do recall her forte getting interrupted sometimes and just completely miss that nuke damage. But I'm neutral on this. I'm neutral. Now let's see what's going on with Miss Changli. We've been considering dropping Changli for a long while now. Wow, Prydwen, not cool. I know a certain person would be mad at you. We're unsure of what to do with her since for casual players who aren't quick swapping constantly, she would land around T1. That being said, for expert players, she is undeniably T0 and our expert tag doesn't cover a discrepancy of 2 tiers. So she's placed on watch list as we are considering simply dropping her to T1 to cater to our core casual audience and specifying her review and pros and cons page that she is T0 at expert level. Honestly, I know this is going to make a lot of hardcore player mad, but they already specified that they're catering to their core casual audience. So this is mainly for casuals. So because of that, I would be leaning towards more agreeing to this nerf because they have a point. For casual players, Changli cannot really achieve her best potential. And then we have Encore, Jiyan, Xiangli Yao, these like old characters being placed on watch list to like keep a distance from Camellya. Prydwen thinks Camellya is still like half a tier above them. So if Camellya goes down, they will all go down. Perfect logic, right? That will wrap up my Prydwen tier list reaction for Wuthering Waves 2.1. And we'll see you guys in the next video, which is going to be a Spectral Rover guide. Bye!